Sasquatch, Bigfoot, call it what you want, but it's an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah, totally interesting. And it doesn't matter if you're a believer or not. Now you can learn all about it at a new museum that opened today in Boring. Foxville's John Hendricks went to check it out live in studio with the story to show that Boring is anything but boring.
Pretty fascinating, not boring.
Oh, yeah.
It was quite the adventure today. The North American Bigfoot Center opened this morning. It's a small sampling of the things that point to the existence of Bigfoot. Folks at the museum say it is only expected to grow in the coming months. Just off Highway 26.
In some ways, it's eye-opening.
In Boring on the way to Mount Hood.
We are here. We are open from now on.
Masks, maps, castings, and yes, a life-size Bigfoot fill a new museum dedicated to all things about the elusive creature.
I've had witnesses today who have seen Sasquatches up close say that the face is very close to what they saw.
The museum is the brainchild of Cliff Barrickman and his wife. He's a longtime Bigfoot hunter. 25 years he's been at it.
I think in some ways it's eye-opening, but for other people who have actually seen these animals out in the wild, it's validating, because they're not taken seriously as witnesses.
Here you can learn of sightings and take a look at castings made from footprints found around the country.
My job is to put eyeballs on the evidence and let the people decide for themselves. I don't care what you think. I don't care what anybody thinks. I know they're real. I've seen one, and I'm here to share the love of the subject with everyone.
At the new museum, you can even learn of lore of native cultures from all over.
The Apaches in Arizona said, yeah, my grandma told me don't go out in the woods, or when you do go out in the woods, knock stones together to let the Bigfoots know you're coming, and that sort of stuff. And you hear that same thing from other tribes in other parts of North America as well.
Barrickman knows there are skeptics out there, but he encourages anyone to entertain the idea and come and learn all about Bigfoot.
Every footprint found, every sighting, everything they heard about in Bigfoot was put on this map. And this is the original. This is not a replica at all.
Now that museum and gift shop is only partly open. They say they plan to expand in the coming months. The goal to fill the 3,400 square feet they have right off Highway 26. Reporting live in studio tonight, John Hendricks, Foxville, Oregon.
Well, we're outside the Bigfoot Museum here in Boring, Oregon, and I see Cliff in the doorway right there, so we're going to head on in and check this place out.
This is Dr. Jeff Miller as well. But the bark marks on the bark of the creature's hands. I know, I thought that was so cool because it shows the grease on it, whatever they have in their hands.
So this guy was the coolest thing I've seen in this Bigfoot Center. Even though the whole place in general is kind of small, basically just one big room, Cliff did say he was expanding it, and it should all be open sometime in October of this year. So I look forward to going back and seeing the whole thing.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
But while I was there, I was hoping to get a chance to talk to Cliff one-on-one about the tracks. I had a lot of questions to ask him, especially since I corresponded with him last year about my Bailey tracks that I found, and I really wanted to pick his brain because I had a lot of questions, and I wanted to basically clear the air and try to get some answers for myself about the tracks that I found last year. So while I was at this table studying all the tracks that were on display, I did notice that there was a juvenile track on the table. So of course I whipped out my phone and started comparing the pictures of my Bailey Lake tracks to that track or that casting, and it looked identical to what I had cast. And as I was studying it, Cliff kind of popped his head over my shoulder and looked at my phone and said, "Hey, that looks like a nice juvenile track there." And of course the conversation started from there, and him and I spent a few minutes discussing tracks. I was asking him a lot of questions, like does a mid-tarsal break appear in every single track that people have found? And he says no, it doesn't always appear. Most of the time it'll appear as a flat-footed creature, and there may even be a slight arch in there too. I then asked him, do all the toes usually spread apart when this thing's walking around, do all the tracks, do all the toes, spray apart? And he says no. There's a lot of tracks where the toes are all, kind of squished together. And so I then asked him again, which was one of the arguments against my tracks, was one of the pinky toes kind of, are like kind of touching the other toes, which would indicate that somebody was just walking barefoot who is usually wearing shoes. And he also said that that is also a characteristic of Bigfoot tracks as well. So we had a long discussion about the tracks, and eventually I did tell him that I sent him some tracks. He doesn't remember because he gets so many tracks, which is understandable, but he was totally cool. And he is the real thing. He appears really nice on TV. He's really nice in person. He's the real deal. And I have a lot of respect for Cliff. And we discussed tracks. He was demonstrating to me on, all the different types of movements to look for, and what appears to be in a lot of Bigfoot tracks, and even demonstrating on how they place their foot down, how they walk, everything. So I didn't get any confirmation on my tracks, but he did prove the point that my tracks could very possibly be Bigfoot tracks, because even though they said that, because of the lack of a mid-tarsal break appearing in a lot of the tracks and the toes being pushed together, he also said that those also are signs in Bigfoot tracks. So, my tracks, I'm not tossing them off the table yet. So I thought the experience was pretty cool, and I can't wait to go back and talk more with him. And next time I go down, I will take my own castings down and show them to him and see what he actually thinks about them.
Been hunting forever, and they didn't think about it. And they were so excited about the they didn't know it.
Are you, like, whatever seat?
If you have any other questions, so you'll be back.
There you go.
Okay.
Love that little guy.
So a few years ago, yeah.